Everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Well, joining me today is Katie Bartel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I don't know why I said Martel. I don't know what's going on in my brain. You never know. Well, I am tired. I don't sleep well.
Right.
So you're here because you're going to talk about the fact that you're running for school board trustee?
Yeah. I'm running for school trustee. I'm hoping to it's been, I've been an advocate for years in the school system and in the community and stuff. So
you are. What do you do?
Well, I've been the DPAC chair for the last 3 years. I've worked a lot with Chilliwack Pride. I sit on the city's accessibility committee as well. I sit on with DPAC, I was sitting on the inclusive education committee as well for the advisory committee for school district. I also do a lot of personal work, just supporting parents and stuff, trying to navigate the system and everything like that.
So to be a trustee, do you need any special training?
No, there's, I have some thoughts on that. I would love to make sure that people do have a little bit of training and a basic understanding of how the school system and public education works and stuff like that. Right. But it's an elected position, so you can be it can be anybody.
Okay, as long as you want to run, then either you're going to get voted in or you're not.
Yeah.
So what made you decide at this point in your life to run?
You know what? It's kind of the natural progression. I think it's the next step. I've been navigating the school system for 12 years. I have 3 kids in this in school still. My first is in grade 11 and grade 10, and then I have another child in grade 6.
Okay.
They all have various disabilities and support needs, and it's been a challenge. And I'm somebody who kind of likes to change from within a bit. So I started years ago just kind of advocating for my daughter in kindergarten early enough. Early on, changed some things in the school and changed some things for her. And then I'm also not somebody who wants to just leave it with my children. I don't focus on just one kid. It's a bigger systemic issue. So
for sure.
Kind of just started joining PACs. I started, and then I just kept going up and up from there and, progressing my advocacy. And school trustee is it's a different platform for advocacy. Anybody can advocate to the province and to the district, anyone can do that. But I think, understanding how the system works and knowing where and when to advocate, having those relationships with people. I've already done a lot of work to develop that through DPAC. And
so just want to stop right there. For those who don't know what DPAC is, can you explain that?
Yeah, it's a district parent advisory council. Okay. And so every school has a PAC. And they're autonomous. They're they represent the parents for that school. They are allowed to, in the School Act, have a representative go to be a member of DPAC, which is the District Parent Advisory Council. Okay. So we work with the district, basically. We have a lot of relationships with the district's admin, district staff, things like that. So we are a bit more of each school has their specific points of interest, and then we are the whole district thing. So we represent all the parents, and so I've already been doing that for 3 years as chair. And before that, I was secretary. Before that, I was a DPAC rep, and before that, I was on PACs and things like that.
So you have a good understanding of
I definitely do. What needs to be happening. I have a good understanding what needs to, what it takes to change too, and what it takes to, what I see as the issues.
Now, you know that there is this group that call themselves the activists, and not what I choose to call them, but they like to call themselves that, and they are disruptive, and they don't like what the trustees do, as if you have, from my understanding, trustee doesn't dictate policy or what's being taught or.
They make policy. So trustees make policy, and that's kind of the head. And then from that, the staff take what the trustees have established as policy, with hopefully with collaboration and consultation with staff, with parents, with kids. That's best practice.
But you don't. Maybe I chose the wrong word. You don't choose the curriculum, like what?
No, So so each teacher is actually their classrooms are autonomous as well. Teachers can teach as long as they're hitting the marks, and as long as they're through transparency and through accountability and stuff like that. As long as the teachers are teaching what the province has set out as a curriculum, then they're allowed to come up with their own lesson plans. They're allowed to, figure out their own, what they want to use for curriculum, for resources, things like that. They can develop their own sometimes.
For sure,
so there is provincially accepted or approved curriculums that they can choose from, and they can also choose from different ones or adapt them as long as they're hitting the BC curriculum kind of outlines and things that the kids are supposed to learn each year.
For sure, So getting back to this group, I don't want to harp on it a little, but I know that they have, like you, obviously, Terry Westerby.
Yeah.
And you know that they've gone after Terry and they've other members. Are you worried about that on your own behalf at all?
You know what? Yeah, as any woman in politics, as anybody in politics, I think women and transgender people get it a little bit worse. And it's unfair.
Totally.
I definitely, I was asked about running last time, and there was I've always said that, I know I can do the job, and I know I can do the job well.
Right.
The election part scares me a little bit. We saw the awful things that happened at the last by-election, which were completely unfair and completely unreasonable. I hope that this is cleaner. I would love to get Chilliwack to the place where we just have a friendly general election where people vote who will do the best job and represent the best. I have hope for that. Maybe that's naive of me, I don't know. But
no, we should all hope for things like that.
So
it's kind of interesting because even though I don't have children, obviously I don't have children school age, and everybody in my building is 55 plus, and some people will say, why would I vote for school trustee? But I think it's important.
It is important
to use your voice for, it doesn't have to be my children, could be for your children, right?
It is, right?
Because I think we're parents for everybody.
And I think that we focus sometimes just in our own world and what's affecting us, and that's natural. We're all going to do that, but I think that that's something that kind of sets me apart, that it's not just I have my experience with my kids, and that's given me my whys and my motivation and all of that, but I also want to see this big changes for everybody. It's not just about our kids. And I think that if we just focus on ourselves and, what's going on in our world, then, it I don't know, creates these little chasms.
It's too narrow. It's just too narrow. Because I think that's what happens a lot of the time, why we have so many problems. Because people just want to focus on their thing.
And I'm somebody who's pretty relational. I really like having those, those conversations and relationships and understanding the complexities and the nuances. I know that there's issues with right and left and conservative, progressive, and I like to think that I'm somebody who understands the complexities of both, and I definitely have my opinions and my stances on things, but I also think that there's room to talk.
That's the thing. Is sit down and talk. Somebody who totally disagrees with you, right?
And it's hard. That can be hard. And uncomfortable.
Of course.
And I think it takes both people in that conversation to have some mutual respect for each other. And I think I do that really well already. I think I've proven that within DPAC, because there's been some points of contention between representing parents collectively and what parents want versus what the district wants. Rohan is our superintendent, and I just have disagreed with him profusely many times. And we have a great relationship though. Like when I think of how many times we've gotten into it over something, I don't think that we should have as good of a relationship as we do. And I think that that's something that's really good and unique about myself. And I think I bring that, even with, thinking of people on the school board, me and Richard disagree on a lot of things too. But we're great. We get along wonderfully. And, Terry is one of my great friends, and we disagree a lot of things too. And we work it out. And I think that's a sign of maturity. And I think that's a sign of good leadership and what people, if they want their voices heard, there does need to be, some regulation and some ability to build those relationships.
Absolutely. And you don't, like one of the things, I'm sorry, I keep going back to this group, is my understanding that they're into bullying people. How do you get people, if you want somebody to think your way, you're not gonna do it by bullying them or
No,
threatening them. That just
yeah,
doesn't work. And
no.
if they would just sit down and with you, and let's just say they disagree with you, as you say, come on, let's have a dialogue.
Yeah, well, that
Right?
that speaks to, one of the main points that I want to bring to the school district too. Like kids and adults aren't going to learn, aren't going to, digest information if they're feeling scared, if
Yeah.
they're feeling threatened, if they're feeling, intimidated or in any way. And, our district does have a lot of issues with bullying and violence and in the school district. And I don't know the answers to all this. I don't know the answers to everything, but I do think that, that collaboration with parents, I think coming to the table. And I think that that's one of the really big things that I've done as well with DPAC is beforehand, parents were not at the table nearly as much. So in the last 3 years, and I know that the school district would agree with this, that the parents are now have a seat at the table. We're invited to partner meetings. We are collaborated with on policies that affect parents. I'm always going to be somebody who wants parents to be involved more, and wants parents to be collaborated with more. But there is that is happening in the last 3 years than it ever was before. And we're invited to different events, and that just shows how much work I've done with, for those relationships. Right.
Yeah.
So
and that's good for your children to see, right?
Yeah.
Or for everybody's children to see. They mimic what we do,
exactly,
whether we realize it or not, right? So if we can be like, we don't want the children to bully.
Yeah.
They're so told in school, no tolerance for bullies.
Yeah.
But sometimes the parents are out there bullying.
Yeah,
So it's like
unfortunate. And I think that things like that trickle down. Like I was asked this weekend about, like, how our kids really aware of what happens in the school district. And, elementary kids probably not, but high school kids absolutely are very aware of what's happening with the school board. And, and they're hearing their parents talk, and they're hearing and seeing things on the news and stuff like that. And that trickles down into the schools, and I would love to be able to bring that those relationships and those collaborations to the school board, and start focusing on some of the really big issues that are emerging right now that no one's talking about. Like we have class sizes and composition changing next year, and there's been very little coverage about that. And it's actually quite terrifying. I think parents should be very concerned about this. Well, there's an arbitration. There was an arbitration that we have to go back to old language and old definitions of autism specifically, back in the 90s, and that was 2002. Anyways, early 2000s, around 2000s, the definition of autism versus Asperger's, and we don't define autism as Asperger's anymore. But based on this arbitration from 2019, we have to go back now to doing that, and that's going to affect our class sizes and composition. So kids who fit the diagnosis or the language of Asperger's, whereas right now they would count as 2 seats, they are going to now they're only now going to be counting as 1 seat. So those classes for elementary schools will be, so a class that had 28 kids or 29 kids, with one of them having like Asperger's, and I don't like that's not what we use anymore, but this old definition of it, or who's autistic, they will now count as 1 child, so the classes will be bigger. And for children I mean, class sizes, 30 kids in a class is a lot.
Well, that's what it was like when I was in school, and unfortunately, when I was in school, it was geared towards the middle kids, like not the brighter kids and not the slower kids. So if you were bright, really bright, you were probably bored. If you're slow, too bad you didn't catch on. And so that's kind of what happens when you have those great big classes. And
you teach to the average, right? You don't teach to the outliers. And what if? So there's Dr. Shelley Moore, I'm a big fan. She speaks about teaching, creating curriculums, creating access points in what kids are doing, and learning that they can you can do the one lesson. You can have one lesson. You can and you can create access points for all of the kids to access that lesson. So one really amazing example, my kids are in the art stream in the district, and they've gone to Leary, they've gone one's at ADR, and they go to Imagine now. And I remember, so I have two children that are very close in age, and they were in the ADR together. And it was when it was first starting, and they were starting to implement these principles of competency-based curriculum and stuff like that. And they were doing a mapping unit. And this mapping unit, so my typical daughter, she was able to, it was like, here's the mapping unit, this is Canada, do this. And she was able to, list all the capital cities and that kind of thing in the provinces. And my second daughter has Down syndrome, and she's autistic and has ADHD as well. And she cannot write, she can't read, but she was able to participate with her peers by doing a puzzle of Canada. And so I'm like, so those are it's the same lesson, they're all learning the same thing, and they're inclusively teaching and inclusively working and inclusively being challenged to work together. And I remember them coming home and like seeing this in the communication book and being like this is what I've been working for, and it's not a hit every time, like a ballpark every time or anything like that, but it's when it happens, it's incredible, and a really cool feeling to know that these kids are all working together and inclusively, which is the way I would love to see our society going towards, right? So
it's kind of interesting you talk about my son's colorblind. Colorblind runs rampant in my family, and when they would do the maps, when he early on, he would be teased because of his color choices, right? Yeah. So finally asked me to buy him crayons that had the name of the color on
that's right. See, and those adaptations and resources are.
But it shouldn't have been a problem, and I don't know who it stemmed from or whatever. Yes. One of the things that another thing that has concerned me, like I don't know if they still have them. Do they do IQ tests to distinguish kids whether that are gifted? Do they still do that?
I don't know the actual testing for giftedness. I think it's more like a diagnostic criteria. I don't believe the school does. Okay, I shouldn't speak to this because I'm not completely sure, but I believe that there is like more of a diagnostic process. It's not the same as just a simple IQ test.
Good. Always because my concern was the IQ test would geared towards the academics. So if your child was really good with the arts or musically inclined, they were not included in being gifted, even though they are gifted, so I'm glad to hear that it's not like that anymore.
And that's what we need to do. Like we need to stop kind of putting kids in boxes and challenging them and giving them opportunities and equitable opportunities that they're going to be able to find out what inspires them. And we need to empower teachers to be able to give those opportunities to these kids. And then we need to, ensure and collaborate with parents so that parents are confident in their kids' education, right? So, and I think that's doable. I think we can do it. In the 12 years, I've seen a shift. It's very slow, but it is happening.
Everything moves slow when it comes to change.
It's happening, and I'm excited to see it happen. I'm excited to be part of it. I have some more ideas for more things that I want to see happen and do. And
so how do your kids feel about you running?
So they're all teenagers. You know what? I think that, they're going to have, they're going to make jokes. They're going to have concerns. And I think there's one sign outside their school right now. And my oldest is quite,
with your picture with you.
The election signs and stuff. So it's just down the road from her school. And so a lot of her kids are going to see that. And today's the first day that she's going to school. So I haven't heard what teasing she might get or not get. But she was a little concerned about that. But as a whole, I think they're really proud. They know that they've seen some of the changes that I've already made. Early on when Sophie, my daughter with Down syndrome and autistic, she first went to kindergarten. They still had separate in her school. They had separate sports days.
Separate what?
Sports days.
Oh, okay.
So they would, I got it. the permission slip or a notice for the regular sports day, and the second sports day, or then the sports day for Sophie was they were going to, I don't know, the zoo or something like that, and it was the same day, and I was like, what? Like what?
Yeah.
No, like no. And I remember I was told like, well, like this is what we've always done, and people are always thankful because it's hard to regulate like you know, kids with diverse needs, and that this makes it easier. And I was like, well, that's not okay. Like,
Yeah.
create a space where there's regulation and there's opportunity to regulate, and where they can be included, or we're just teaching an entire generation that of children that like kids with like disabilities can't do sports.
Yeah,
Like
that can't be involved.
that's not okay.
Yeah.
And so that was the last year they did that, and they never did that again.
Well, that's good, because a lot of parents are
So-
afraid to speak up.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
and they don't know where they can, and the channels to speak up, right?
Sure,
So
yeah.
you know, I've been doing a lot of work through DPAC and through PACs to make sure that people know, you know, you go to the teacher first, and you go to the admin, then you go to your district principal, and then to the superintendent, and then if there's still no resolution, you can do section 11s, like or depending on the issue, to like the school board and stuff like that. So but you have like it's a process.
Sure.
We do have to follow the process, because if you go directly to the district principals and you haven't actually even talked to the teacher or the first principal, it's like, well, where, well, like, you know, it's confusing, like, and then there's backtracking, right? So and it's unfortunate, because that does take a lot of effort from parents too, to even, you know and retain that information of how and where. So I think that our district needs to get a lot better at communication. I've been saying this for many, many years. And they have finally hired a communications officer that I just met at the trustee training kind of thing the other day. She seems lovely. I'm really excited. I've already seen kind of an uptick a bit in their social media. So really looking forward to better communication and clear, concise, digestible information from the district for parents, because that's, you know, there's so much information, and we need to know who to go to when we need to be able to, when we need to figure that out, right? So
here's a little handbook.
Yes, and that should be, you know, I would love to see the website upgraded and like be a bit more understandable, because there's parts of that I'm still like, where is this? It's easier for me to Google something and find it on both SD33 than it is to go on the website and Google it on there. That doesn't come up the same, which I don't know a lot about algorithms and things like that.
Right. No, that totally confuses me.
Yeah.
So when is this election?
March 1st. March 1st is the election, and that's like the main voting day. There's 2 advanced voting days on the 2 Wednesdays before. Don't know the actual days. It's February 19th and 26th. Yeah, I can look it up. It's the 2 Wednesdays before, and then the Saturday there is mail-in ballots as well. I believe, so it's the 19th and the 26th. Oh, sorry, what's right. And then there's, it is paper ballots, and you have to, there's a mail-in availability ballots as well. You have to do that a little bit in advance.
Yes, I nowadays I choose a mail-in. It's so much easier for any kind of election.
Yeah. So you have to do that through the city website. So you just like Google Chilliwack elections and voting, and it'll come up.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's been great. You know, I'm really pleased that you came here.
Thank you.
The time to talk to me. Let's get back to the audience for just a second. So you've been listening to Katie Bartel, and if you live in Chilliwack, get out and vote in March, or as she said, the what do you call it, advanced voting, you know, because this is important for your children or your neighbor's children or somebody's children. They don't even have to be yours. That's the way it is. Anyway, thank you again for being here. And thank you everybody for watching the show. I hope you continue to do so. Take care, everybody, and peace out. Now I find the off switch.